The Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has once again been doing the rounds in the news for controversial remarks he made, which basically appeared to blame women for Pakistan's rape problem. Um, I'm going to say from the outset, I've never much cared for the guy. I've always found him to be kind of the definition of a cynical, opportunistic politician. And I suppose you could say many politicians are, but this guy is the leader of a country of 200 million people, a very important country geopolitically, um, straddling South Asia and the Islamic world. So I think sort of things that he comes out with are significant. I think he's a disgraceful leader, but um, the hypocrisy of this man is staggering. The personal hypocrisy. So I'm just reading out a bit here from the Spectator. There's other sources. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has once again blamed women for an appalling rise in rape cases. Khan used a televised question and answer session this week to say that sexual violence was a result of increasing obscenity. Women in Pakistan should remove temptation because not everyone has willpower. He added, urging females to cover up to help reduce the sexual violence which has plagued our country. Khan pointed the finger of blame at Bollywood and Hollywood for spreading vulgarity. He also repeated the growing divorce tally of the UK as evidence for the ethical plunge of the West. As if women could easily get divorced in Pakistan, which he said is messing up the moral compass of the Muslim world in Pakistan. World history tells when you increase vulgarity in society, two things happen. Sex crimes increase and the family system breaks down, Khan said. Simultaneously, this asshole is showing he's attacking the West and India for problems that are in Pakistan. Rape is a problem all over the world, obviously, but Pakistan has a particular problem. Um, and he has the arrogance and the callousness to insult rape victims for their own crimes. Now, for someone to preach about family structure in the way he does, this is a guy who's been married 3 times. He was a notorious playboy and womanizer. Um, and he was very popular in the West for a while. Uh, so the hypocrisy of Imran Khan is staggering. And on top of all of this, the man is a complete lapdog for Islamists. I'm not sure that he is an ideological Islamist himself, but he absolutely panders to them. And I appreciate in a country like Pakistan, it's always a difficult balancing act. It's not an easy country to govern. It goes without saying. But I cannot overlook the disgraceful way that Aisha Bibi was treated, the Christian woman who was hounded out of the country after she was very nearly executed. I have to say, Britain did not exactly step up to the plate on that one. We should have done a lot more. I think in the end it was either Belgium or the Netherlands that gave her asylum. Um, but Pakistan as a country has no right to point to any other country, frankly. This is a country with severe problems, and many of those lie at the door of Islamist ideology. Um, so the hypocrisy of this guy is pathetic. Unfortunately, we can't just cut him off. Pakistan is geopolitically and culturally close to Britain. Obviously, we have a large British Pakistani diaspora population. So, Khan knows full well that we're not going to lash out. But I do think that if he insults the West, we should fire back a little bit and tell him instead of pointing fingers at other countries, deal with the problem. And don't deal with it by blaming women. Deal with it by punishing the rapists. It's disgusting, actually. The Spectator words it as Imran Khan's cowardly response to Pakistan's rape crisis. I should say the article is by Kumwar Kuldun Shahid, and that's spot on. It is absolutely cowardly to scapegoat women for. I mean, this idea if a woman is more moderately dressed and rapists will leave her alone, it's rubbish. Because not that it should matter, but there's been women who have been raped that are in headscarf or in they're not showing anything. The only people to blame for rape are rapists, and that's true the world over. But I would say this: Those feminists who talk about rape culture in this country, they need to look at a situation like Pakistan and really consider how much worse it is. Now, I'm not saying we don't have a problem, but I do think generally, I mean, here, when the Sarah Everard thing was going on, people were attacking the police and saying they were blaming women for suggesting that women be more careful at night. But I don't think that's the same thing as the prime minister of a country basically blaming vulgarity. It's totally different. Um, but Khan, I think he's a very weak leader. I think he is he will go with whatever the comfortable position is. So if it's comfortable for him to pander to Islamists, that is what he will do. I don't think he has much conviction. I have very little respect for him. Of all the world leaders I could think of, Khan is one of those I have least respect for. But there is, has to be said, there is a certain trajectory of machismo in certain leaders at the moment. And machismo, by the way, I do not think is the same as masculinity. He had it from Rodrigo Duterte as well, so-called Dirty Harry in the Philippines, who once boasted that if he were the town mayor, he should go first in gang rape. Now, in all these cases, the leaders involved claim that they're taken out of context or they are misquoted. You can only be misquoted so much. These sort of bombastic leaders, Bolsonaro in Brazil is another example. These guys, and it has to be said, they are mostly men, they know what they're doing. They're playing to their base. It's reprehensible, and it's a form of populism that is not something to admire. That's not strength, and it certainly isn't being a strong man. Um, so Imran Khan, in my opinion, is a disgrace. Incidentally, it's his ex-wives who are attacking him for this as well. So it's not like if he was misquoted, then that's a pretty big misquote. That's always his excuse. The man's a card. He can't take ownership of his own words. Uh, and like I say, I accept that governing Pakistan isn't easy. It's a very complex country. It's 200 million people. But I do think you have to, I was going to say have some basic values, but then there's a cultural issue here as well. The fact is, in many parts of the Islamic world, the attitude to rape is very, very different from the West. Um, but the arrogance of this man to blame the West and to blame India, he needs to get over himself, start being a leader, start taking responsibility, and yeah, not acting like the petty little populist that he is.